So this is officially the very first kind of Ask Me Anything Q&A session that I've ever done for MindFix. So this is a first. So if there's any tech glitches or anything like that, please forgive me in advance as I'm figuring this out as I go along here. But what I thought I'd do, since there are a handful of people who signed up who aren't here yet, is I sat down and made a list of the top 4 questions that I get asked every single week and have been asked every single week without fail from the beginning of MindFix over the past years. And my guess is that each of you has some form or variation and are curious about something on this kind of frequently asked question list. And I thought I'd run through just some basic answers to these questions that I get asked nonstop to make sure that I can get that information out to you. And then I'll open it up. And I am a open book. Any and all questions that you want to ask or that you're curious about, past experiences with real clients, things that work, things that haven't worked, my personal experience, what's it like to work with the team, how we know if it's actually going to work, anything that you are curious about. As I'm talking here, I invite you to take some notes. Write down anything that really piques or, kind of pulls at your curiosity and that you want to know. We have a full hour. There's not that many people here, so we'll have plenty of time for all of your questions today. And I'm excited that you're here. And hi, Todd from Austin. So Todd, I was just saying, we've got Zambia, Austin, Colorado, Calgary, Minnesota, and Portugal, which is pretty darn cool. So we have people from all over the world here on our little session today. So super quick, let me go over the top questions that I get asked. And then we'll dive into all the questions that you guys have. So the first question that I am asked all the time is how can one work with you? What is it like to work with you? Is it a course? Is it a program? Is it one-on-one? What is it like to work with you? If I wanted to do MindFix, what does that mean? So there's only, as of right now, 2 ways to work with MindFix. Number 1 is what 99.8% of people who are our clients do, and that is our one-on-one programs. We have 4 different tiers of programs, and then sometimes when people can't work with one of these, we make something custom. If someone really wants to do this work and they are dedicated and they show up, we figure something out for them where we can get them help. But we have 4 levels of one-on-one programs. We have no group. We have no teachings or trainings. Everything is like a Mayo Clinic for the mind, where you show up with whatever challenges you have, and you're going to have a small team ranging from 3 people up to 7 people working with you over the course of 3 to 6 months based on your program. And you'll invest anywhere from 1.5 on the low end to 3 hours on the high end a week to start working on your challenges. And the way that people describe it is, it's like they have a heavy backpack when they show up, and every week we're pulling out rocks from their backpack. So we work with you for a short set period of time. We have like an anti-therapy model. You're not going to be coming back after 6 months and 12 months and 18 months. We really want to help you over a short period of time. So we have these set time programs. And you work with our team, and each week the work is done in the sessions. There's no videos to watch. There's no work to do outside of your sessions. You do have to track the shifts and changes that you're noticing as you go through each week. That's the only thing you have to do outside of your sessions, but the work really is done in the sessions. So that's the first way that someone can work with us, is in these one-on-one programs. The second way is only like 0.02% of people that work with us. We have a handful, so usually between 4 to 7 private live events that are held usually in Colorado over the course of a year. They are invite only through me. We don't publish them on the website. There's nowhere where you can find out about it, except the people who are called to these events and who are meant to be at these events find a way to have a conversation with me, and we explore what's possible. These events are not like any other event that anybody has ever been to. Oftentimes people will say they're the most powerful experience they've ever been to in their adult life. They are fun. They push the envelope of what's possible. They push people's comfort zones and limits, and they're incredibly unique and special. And so it's one of those things where I'll drop some breadcrumbs out there, and the right people pick them up, find them, and find their way to these events. And they're very small, private, very special. So those are the two ways that people can work with us at this point in time. So that was question number one, is how did someone work with you? The second question that people ask is like, okay, so let's say I did a program with you. What's it like? What am I going to be doing? Am I meditating for an hour each day? Am I listening to some binaural beat stuff? Are you going to like be hypnotizing me? Like, what does it actually do? What do you guys do in your program? And that's a great question. So our work is all about success through subtraction. All of our work is done in your one-on-one sessions with your coaches each week, which are done in a specific sequence, a specific order, with specific people, with specific combinations of methods. Everything that we do is about subtracting the blocks and the barriers that are in your way. So what it's like to do a program with us, people are usually shocked because they're expecting all sorts of hard work, and to have these kind of results so quickly, it's going to take a lot of time. And it's like, it doesn't. You're in 1 to 2 sessions with us each week, and there's no homework other than track the changes you're noticing. And that's literally it. And so your program will go from 3 to 6 months. It's customized based on what you're looking to explore and experience and the results you're looking for. And then tacked on at the very beginning, before you start a MindFix program, we have something called a week 0. And in that week, it's essentially an onboarding and setup week where you will watch some videos that I've prepared. You will meet with your program manager to talk about what your experience is like and how you're going to track your progress and how we're going to know that you're making progress, how all the different pieces and parts blend together, what to expect, setting up your sessions so that it works with your calendar and your schedule. So there's a setup week, your week 0, and then you dive into your program. And again, depending on which tier, it could be 3, 4, possibly 5 or 6 months. And that's it. It's literally show up to your sessions. These sessions are nearly 100% conversational. You and I having a conversation, you and a team member having a conversation where you're getting asked questions and you're sitting there answering them honestly, openly, and with vulnerability. There's no kind of woo-woo. There's no, you need to listen to this audio and go into a trance. There's none of it. It's conversational questions and answers, and the types of conversations that people have in their MindFix programs. People typically graduate, and the feedback we get is, I've never, I've gone to therapy for 30 years and I've never had conversations like this. I've never had anybody ask me questions in this way, in this order, that allowed me to experience these kinds of results. So it's all conversation. There's nothing, people expect some type of magic or secret sauce that they've never heard of before. And it's just sessions that are quite unique, but it's all done through conversation. The third question that I am asked all the time is why? Why are you guys able to get results when I've been going to therapy for 30 years? I've been doing, $100,000 coaching program for the last 2 years. And how come you're going to be able to see results when they haven't been able to deliver them for me? And it's all of those types of things. Hold on one moment. I have no idea what that was, but thanks for your patience. So why does your program differ? And everything that we do at MindFix is typically 180 degrees and is the opposite of what most coaching and classical therapy programs offer. So in most coaching programs and in most therapy, like the therapy I went to for 30 years, right? When I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder as a teenager, and I went to different therapists. The classical kind of old school models are very additive. We're going to help give you tools and tactics and strategies that help you cope with your problems. You're having fears, you're having anxieties. Here's how to breathe through it. Here's how to manage your anxiety. Here's a tool of cognitive behavioral therapy to bring awareness to, are you making a mountain out of a molehill? Are you engaging in black and white thinking? Journal it every time, put a mark next to it, bring awareness. And it's like, you have all these issues and things, and it's to try and manage and cope with all of these symptoms. You've got repeating thoughts. Here's what to try and do to not let them bother you too much. You're engaging in procrastination. We're going to get you set up on a calendar system and have an accountability buddy who comes in and checks in on you so that you can't procrastinate anymore. So all of these tools and techniques, they're additive. They give you more to do. They add more to your to-do list. They make you feel like I got to do this. There was one point when I was going through my healing process and I had chronic pain, anxiety, and depression. And my to-do list was like 16 things before I even got to my day. It was all the things I was supposed to be doing to take care of myself and to heal myself. I needed to be meditating. I needed to be doing a stream of consciousness journaling. I needed to do a gratitude journal. I should be doing some type of cardio, and then I needed to cook a certain way to heal my body. And it was just like this list of all of these things I was supposed to be doing. And it's all additive, more. Everything we do at MindFix is the opposite. And people are usually shocked because they're like, I'm ready to work hard. I'm here. Tell me what to do. What are all the things? I can do it for hours. I'm committing everything to this. How do I get better? And it's like, all we're going to do is we're not teaching you anything. We're not coaching you on new skills. You have all the skills. You've read the books. If it was more information and more techniques that was going to help you, you'd be better by now. You don't need more. You need less. So instead of giving you more bandages or more neosporin or things to put on top of your wounds, every time you have a session with us, we're going to come in and we're going to pull splinters out. Splinters out. The things that are causing the pain, we're going to pull them out. It's success through subtraction. So when you pull out the root cause of your pain, instead of putting more Band-Aids and more neosporin and over it, suddenly the pain isn't there. You don't have to learn new tools to manage your anxiety because the anxiety doesn't come up. You don't have to learn how to better manage your time and your procrastination because you just don't procrastinate anymore. So the issues actually go away and you don't have to keep learning how to cope with it. A lot of what takes people's time is learning how to cope with their issues. And that's so time consuming. Imagine how much time you save and energy you save when there's nothing left to cope with because the root cause, the splinter that's causing the pain, is actually gone. And so that's our entire paradigm is we subtract. Every week we're like, okay, this is what you're experiencing. Let's figure out why. Let's get to the root of it. And then let's pull that out so that when you graduate and you're done working with us and you're off in the world, you don't need to come back to us because you've had this relapse or these other issues going on. We've pulled out the splinter and it doesn't come back. So it saves a lot of time and energy. So that was question number 3. And then question number 4, which is always on people's minds. What does it cost to work with you guys? So our live events are typically around $5,500. And then our programs, our core programs, our Signature, Signature Plus, and Signature Platinum programs range from $12K up to $30K. We have a select program that is in between 6 and 12, and we do offer scholarships, a handful of scholarships every single quarter to people who believe that this would truly change their life, but they can't make the financial investment. Typically, if someone is completely dedicated and they're ready to show up and they want help, we figure out some way to get them the support that they need. So those are the 4 main questions I am asked day in and day out. And I know that a handful of you who signed up had already sent me a couple of these and said, this is what I'm going to ask. So now that I've shared that, I'd love to open it up to the group and see what questions you have brought today that I can give you more information on. So if you want to hit the little raise hand button down there, I'll be able to click allow to talk here and we can start going into the Q&A. Cool. So, hey there.
Hello. How are you? Always good to see this. I've been on your email list for a while, so I've sort of like paid attention a little bit to what you've been doing for a while from afar. I was curious, how do you choose what to work on? And I know that it looks like you guys have a pretty good filtering process for figuring out if you're going to be able to help somebody. And it feels like, from what I've seen from afar, that you guys choose sort of like one topic, one particular sort of route to address. So I'm guessing that you can tell me if that's just what you do. You find like sort of a leverage point, and then you work with that. And then I'm also curious about like referring people your direction, and having confidence in that for myself, because there's people who will tell me, I'm always overwhelmed, and this is sort of their story. And then they find their evidence, procedures, and so on and so forth to back that up and continue to run around in that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, I do coaching stuff, and I'm also in conversation with people all the time. So it's nice to be able to send them somewhere else if it's something that I don't particularly feel like I could help them with very well, or that I really want to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So those are a couple of questions, perhaps.
Cool. We can start with those. So I'm going to start with one and then come back and see if I can understand what the second question was. So for number one, if I understood you correctly, the question is, how do we and our clients choose what it is they're going to work on in their program? Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool. So typically when people reach out to us and they apply, there's something going on in their life that they know isn't quite optimal. People usually fall into a couple of different buckets. Some people show up and they're like, I am clear on what's not working, and it is painful. I am triggered by my spouse. I am hesitant when I give presentations, and I'm scared to be seen. I'm procrastinating on starting my new business. They have these things that are like, I want a magic wand and I want these things different now. And so some people show up and they know what they want to work on. Other people show up and they're like, I know something is not right, and I just don't know. I don't even know what it is. I just have this sense as I go throughout my life that I could be better, or that I'm blocking myself, and I don't even know where to start. So it's usually people fall in one of those buckets. If everything feels wonderful and good, they just typically aren't reaching out to us. So people show up and we find an initial leverage point. Like, what's the most painful thing? Is it the procrastination? Is it the fear? Is it the anxiety? And people will kind of brainstorm, and as they go through the onboarding initial starting process, we ask a number of questions that elicit and bring things to the surface. And in the first 2 weeks of the program, what we actually do is a process called mind clarity. And these are conversations that allow you to tap into your subconscious and move past a lot of what you've been thinking about all the time up here, and allow you to connect to actually what's going on. We've had people who showed up and they're like, women don't like me is my problem. And within their first session, they're like, oh, I'm scared of committing. I'm scared of actually being in a relationship, and I feel like I'm not worthy enough to be in a relationship. So we get to take the starting points and what doesn't quite feel right and explore those, and actually help people come to clear definitions of what would be the highest leverage things to work on. Most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, we then take those and people are excited and work through the program. Sometimes we'll work through the program and halfway through, they're like, oh, there's something even deeper. And we'll be flexible and we'll move in a different direction, and we'll work on those things. Other things come up. We just had a client last week who is in her end of her second month, and right in the middle of a session, she had this memory come up that had been blocking her from a lot of other work, and it tied all of these pieces together. And she had been going to therapy for 25 years, and this had never come up. And it just blew everything open. And it did take 2 months. And now we get to go in her remaining 2 months and explore that. And we would have had no idea. So we start with the pain points. We then explore and define and come up with clear definitions of what success would look like to somebody. Like, if we change this, would this just change your life? Would this make you so happy? And then we go in that direction, assuming every week that's the direction that still feels good. And if something shifts, and we find deeper threads or bigger things to work on, we'll have the flexibility and we'll work. That's one of the reasons why we've struggled to do group programs and group coaching, is because everything is so tailored and so subtly nuanced to meet the exact needs and changes of each client, that if we do that in the group, we're not able to give the detailed one-on-one attention to each person. So that's how we choose what to work on, is we starting point, elicit questions, 2 weeks of mind clarity and exploration, defining what success looks like by the end of the program, and then moving forward to clear whatever is blocking people and why they don't have that. And then leaving the flexibility open in case that shifts during the course of the program.
Beautiful. Because it seems to me like there's some real depth that goes toward a specific sticking point. And that's where there's a lot of power by staying with that thing, as opposed to jumping and working on this week and then that the other thing and all over the place. Yeah.
Yes, a lot of therapy and even coaching, people will show up and they go, what are we working on this week?
Yeah.
And there is an element of that within a container of what we're agreeing to work on. Many people, especially in the entrepreneurial world, have kind of shiny object syndrome, and they'll show up and they're like, today my wife bothered me, today my employees were upsetting me, that's what I want to work on, today I was just sad because my dog died. And you can be pulled all over by emotions and be like, this is what I need to work on, this is what I need to work on. And it's kind of a mask for not really getting to what's going on. So if we start at the painful things and we come to this agreement of this is what we're going to explore, we still have a lot of flexibility. And if that's not right, we can change it. But instead of bouncing around to whatever is present for you in the moment and showing up as a symptom, let's actually dive deep, pull out where the seeds that are sprouting all these different anxieties and fears and problems, and then prevent a lot of those symptoms and annoyances from showing up in your day to begin with. Does that make sense? Or is that, was that helpful?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I think it's super fascinating. And I think once I read, you said something about how even knowing what you know, you still have to work with other people for yourself, because doing it to ourselves just doesn't quite work for some reason. Just because I guess our minds are so fast and tricky that they can convince us that it's really interesting.
I would say maybe 10% of our clientele are able to do this work on themselves. And I have been jealous of every single person that comes through the program and has that ability. Yeah. A lot of really intelligent people and entrepreneurs and people who are successful have kind of, their minds have built up these barriers to that. It's like, this is what keeps you safe. And it's almost like, you know, when you get a rental car and you drive over the spikes and you can go one way, but you try to go back the other way. It's like, you can't. Yeah. It's kind of set up these barriers so that it's hard to see. It's like a hall of mirrors, and it's really hard to try and convince yourself of something once it's been set up, because your mind's like, I'm going to put this here and have you believe it, at least in part, because this has kept you safe and this has allowed you to stay safe and survive and see success. So I'm going to leave it here, and it's going to be really hard to change. And even when you try and kind of navigate around that and use all the tricks and tools, part of you is like, I set this up so that you couldn't change this. This is going to keep you safe. So you really need someone on the outside giving you different perspectives to be able to kind of help knock it down. That's been my personal experience, and several of our own coaches have the same thing, where it's like we do this all day for people, and the moment we try to do it to ourselves, it just doesn't quite work.
Yeah, very nice.
Cool. The second question you asked, I want to make sure I can get to that too. Would you be open to repeating that so I can make sure I understood it and can answer it?
Yeah, so actually this has happened to me a bit because I'm familiar with some of your work just at a distance from quite a while ago. Sometimes I get clients myself, or not even clients, just people I talk to that are inquiring about coaching, or I'm not really interested in starting a working relationship with them, but it'd be really nice to be able just to say, hey, go check this person out, because I think with this particular thing, they might be able to assist you. And so I guess in some sense, I wanted to understand a little bit better about, the work that you do. So I feel like, okay, this would be great just to be able to do that.
What would you need to know, I guess, or experience in order to feel comfortable pointing people to a different resource?
I think, honestly, just even connecting with you now in this regard is good enough in some sense, because then I can just say, this is a person who's doing this kind of work, and you can find out for yourself. I'll just connect you and see what happens. Because without really knowing for myself, just from reading the material, it's just too ephemeral to feel like that I have any confidence to say oh yeah, I've heard some cool stuff, or I like what you're doing, because I understand the thinking behind it and I really like it. And but just being able to speak with you now, and it gives me the sensation that it would be really beautiful just to be able to send someone, say, I don't know if there's someone you want to work with, but go check her out. This is MindFix, see what it's about. And then I can tell you that taking the root problem that you're always saying is getting in your way with everything. and then addressing that solely. So I'm not saying that I necessarily will do it, but it has come up in the past where I'm like, okay, this is something I don't feel comfortable saying. I'm going to sit here and work with your anxiety and depression continually. I can have the conversation around it, but it's just not something that I necessarily want to.
Yeah. Well, if there is something else where you're like, I want to be able to refer you as a resource, or I'm interested in being able to share you as information to other people, and there's something that you need, if there's additional information, we can take the conversation offline and I can provide you with whatever additional resources you would need to feel more comfortable or have a better sense of what we do, whether it's videos of the work or, talking with past clients or something. So maybe think about what you would need to feel comfortable, and then we can talk about that another time.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks, that's really fun.
All right. There is someone, Jared, in the chat. Wrote, "You're really making me want to cry. You and I have talked in the past, and I went on to another program, mostly due to financial reasons. And there's been so much repetitive work and reading and writing and audio and video stuff. I'm like, ugh, I'm feeling that. I've been through my fair share of those in my life too. That so much stuff daily that I haven't been consistent with it. It's too much. It's just so much. And it just puts the onus on you to keep doing more and more and more work. I totally feel you there. I get overwhelmed and have expressed that to my coach. And I'm basically told that if I want to see the change, I have to put in the work. It's one of the most frustrating and gaslighty things I would say in the coaching and therapy programs is they put it back on you. If you're not seeing the results, then you're not doing enough work. If you followed all of my instructions and you were doing these 10 hours of work and you were doing your 90 minutes of meditation each day and you were doing all of your journaling, all this, then it would work. But you know what? You must not be serious because you're not doing all of it. And I see that so much. I literally heard a sales coach the other day give a guarantee where it was something along the lines of, we have 100% guarantee. If you do 100% of what we tell you, you're guaranteed to see success. And in the back of my head, I'm like, that's like 10, 15 hours a week of repetitive work. And no one is going to ever be able to do all of the things that you're telling them they need to do. And when you're dealing with a lot of these frustrations, you're going to be dealing with anxiety and fears and patterns and procrastination and not having enough time. And the anxiety is draining your energy. So if you're stacked with then another list of responsibilities and things you're supposed to do, and you can't get through them, first you have guilt for spending money and expending finances on this thing. And then you're like, I'm not doing it. So then you feel frustrated because you're not seeing the results. And then you've got this meta layer of guilt because you haven't been able to do what you wanted to commit to doing, but you didn't realize it was going to be so much effort and your energy levels are low. And it's this negative cycle. And then by the time someone else shows up like we do, and we're like, we actually have this program that works and takes not a lot of time. It's the opposite. You're skeptical, your guard's up. You're going to be like, things don't work for me. And it's a mess. It's a train wreck in the industry where people have gotten so burned from their experiences of being told that you have to do more. And the only way to change is through massive repetition. And it takes so much time. And in order to rewire your neural pathways, the only way to do that is through repetition. And if you're older, it's going to take even more time. And I can tell you categorically, hands down, that is not the truth. We have seen people who have come to us who are in their 60s and 70s, who have had the same issues since they were teenagers. And they've gone a few weeks with us and their issues have completely reversed. Not everything has to take a lot of time. And so I totally feel you, Jared, like been there. So many of our clients have been there. You're not alone with that. So I'm basically being told that if I want to see the change, I have to put in the work. It's so frustrating, absolutely frustrating. And I'm really sorry that you're dealing with that. And I hear that oftentimes. It's like, well, if you're not doing the work, then you're not going to be helped. You must not want it enough. And then they put it back on you, which is really, really frustrating. So I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. If any of you have like a specific question or you want to come on audio, raise your hand and I can hit the button to allow you to talk and we can have a conversation. Okay, so let's go with Kelly.
Hi, Erin. So I have maybe two questions. One, I'm curious, like lots of people, I suppose I'm always intrigued by assessments, you know, like Kolbe and the different tests that can reveal where your strengths are and all of that.
Yes.
So I'd just be curious, just generally sort of how that landscape maps onto, you know, the landscape of what you guys do. I guess I'll put a variable on there, which is, you know, I'm super extreme in lots of those tests, and you know, and so when I get a score of a 0 in a category, that frightens me. I'm sure it has some embedded master superpower value as well, but it just looks like a terrible threat. And then I guess my other question is about, again, like most people, I've dabbled in a variety of, you know, self-helpy kind of experiences, and sometimes have, you know, gotten a free session if someone's been getting their certification, let's call it that. And so different modalities, right? I've gotten a little taste of different modalities.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've noticed about myself is that I live in my head a lot, and so modalities that require me to feel and like access, you know, deep emotion, yeah, that's kind of a problem. So just curious what your experience is with that type of a profile, or you know, how that fits with your paradigm.
Oh, those are juicy, wonderful questions that I love. I actually come from the world of assessments. When I was in this transition period between running my agency and then trying to figure out, what am I going to do when I'm not running my web agency? What's the next thing for me in life? I actually thought I wanted to be a consultant. I got everything DISC certified. I was Kolbe certified. I looked at predictive index, which was absolutely fascinating. I looked at, you know, Enneagram. I was like an assessment junkie. And what was fascinating was the insistence with which a lot of these, not all of them, like not necessarily Myers-Briggs, but a lot of the assessments say that you're not going to change, like this is who you are. And I would see people just get locked into, this is who I am, whether it was as a joke or subconsciously, like I can't change, like here's the results, like it shows, especially something like Kolbe, where they're like, this is your instinct. You're born this way. We see it in kids. It doesn't change your entire life, and it will never change. And my feeling is that I have a lot of hesitancy with different assessments, and because I've seen how they lock people in to feeling that characteristics or patterns of behavior are hardwired in, and people almost give up and they go, that's just who I am. I'm just aggressive. Like that's how I get things done. That's how I've been successful, is I have to steamroll over people, and it's in my assessment, it's a strength. Or I am a researcher, you know, I'm a 8 fact finder in Kolbe, and it's just hardwired in. I can't make decisions. I can't be on the sales call with you and make any decisions unless I do a week of research. It's just how I'm wired. It's how I am. And there's no flexibility. So what I've seen assessments kind of almost like any other tool, like a hammer. It can be used for good, and you can hammer some nails, and it can be used for evil. You could murder someone with a hammer. And I've seen the same thing with assessments as tools. They've been used for good. They can increase communications. Like, hey, this person's biggest fear is being wrong. Can you honor that when you have conversations, you can really structure the conversation powerfully around their biggest fear and knowing what they value. And that's beautiful, because you can increase the quality of conversations. You can have more compassion and empathy for your fellow coworkers and for yourself. On the other hand, people go like, this is the results. This is who I am. This is how I am. And it's almost like it takes away all their desire or permission or hope to ever be able to change. I've seen people who were obsessed with research who were able to make decisions suddenly from their intuition very quickly, you know, who had been typed as you're an obsessive researcher. I've seen people who were told that they're direct, dominant, aggressive people and they'll never be any other way, be able to shift into a place of compassion and empathy and become leaders through compassion, and have been able to drop the aggressiveness. I would say, like, it usually don't have someone going from one end of a spectrum to the other, but people come more towards the middle and have more flexibility to go in any direction. And that we can all have more flexibility versus this is the only way I've ever been able to see results. And so I have a lot of hesitancy around assessments, while I also think they can be valuable tools and they have their place. They're great for helping people understand a snapshot of this is who you are right now. Now let's look at what's working. And then if there's any patterns in here that just aren't, let's see what we can shift. Because you are flexible, you are neuroplastic. Most patterns we have seen are, we can shift and make things work better for you when they're not working. If you love this part of yourself, let's keep it. But let's look at anything in here that's not working well. Like if you're off to the end of the spectrum and this has become obsessive and you can't figure out any other way to be, let's see if we can shift it so you can be a more flexible, adaptable human being. So that's kind of my take personally, and my team's take on assessments. Does that answer your question in terms of like where we are within the assessment landscape?
Yeah, that's super healthy, or super helpful and healthy. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. All right. And then could you tell me your second question again so that I make sure I can reply to it appropriately?
Yeah, it was about this thinking, feeling thing, right? Like that some modalities seem to require you to sort of be able to like really grab that emotion from the past. And I believe I have an extreme amount of resistance to that.
Brilliant. We have seen that the ability to connect to some level of feeling and some level of emotion is almost always required for really deep healing. We can make progress with people to an extent if they can't connect to feelings. But if alexithymia or some form of alexithymia is inability to connect, to express, discuss, explore, or feel your feelings or emotions. I grew up with an alexithymic father. I grew up in a household where emotions weren't discussed, emotions weren't okay. People used to call me a robot. Like I literally, there was one day years ago where I sat in the kitchen having a near panic attack with a friend and looking at, am I sociopathic? Do I not feel? You know, I thought like this is, so I totally understand that like I don't connect to emotions. I'm so cold and uncaring, and it's like there's this barrier. One of the cool things is we have so much experience with this, and so many leaders and entrepreneurs, high achievers, high performers have disconnected from their emotions. Male CEOs, you know, at Fortune 500 companies have disconnected from their emotions in an effort to become successful. So it's really common with what we see. So what we often do, if this is an issue with people who are coming in to work with us, is we'll actually start with that. And we look at that first at the beginning of the program. If you can't connect to emotions, if it wasn't safe for you to feel, if showing them, a lot of our military clients, if showing emotions means you're weak, if being vulnerable is unsafe, or literally part of your brain's like, if I'm vulnerable, if I show emotions, other people will die, you know, like things from the past that get brought to the front that make people shut off subconsciously and make it hard for them to connect to their emotions. We will start with that, and we'll break it open and start to allow it to be safe for people to start reconnecting to what's truly there. It's there in all of us. Just some of us have a wall. And it's like we've numbed it out, or we disconnect and we don't feel. And because that's so important for human connection, it's so important for the healing process. You can't heal something if you can't feel any of it. And it's like, let's go back to that memory. I have no memory, or I don't remember anything. It didn't bother me at all. Doesn't bother me. Or people are like, everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. And we're like, why are you here? Nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. And there's these mechanisms of like, I can't say anything negative. Everything is really good. Well, when your father, you know, beat you or sent you to your room, oh, but he was just doing that. It didn't really bother me. Those are all actually patterns of how we connect to ourselves or don't connect to ourselves. So we will work on that with people at the beginning of their program and break open that inability to connect, so that they can then get not only the most ROI out of their MindFix program, but then nearly any other modality, healing tool, book, resource, communication, and conversation they have with loved ones moving forward will totally shift and change. So that is a real thing. And when you go through life trying to do healing modalities, but you can't feel anything, good luck, because then it's a purely cognitive exercise. It's all up here in your conscious mind. You're answering the way you think you're supposed to answer. I think I would feel this. I think I used to feel this, but it's just up here. And it's a cognitive exercise, no different than doing a math problem. And you can't really heal and change and shift on like that cellular deep level where everything required, where it's required for change, if you're up here in your mind the whole time. That's where a lot of us are. That's where I was my entire life. But breaking open the what's scary and what about your system is not allowing you to connect to your emotions opens up the possibility for a level of healing that most people like us who are just so analytical, logical, have not been able to experience before, because we'll sit there and just talk at someone all day and we use our intellect. Yep, this is what you want to hear. This is what you want to hear. Thanks, good therapy session. So this is different. So that's kind of how we approach it, is when we see that's going on, when we see someone stuck in their head, we go, you know what? Let's take a look at this and open things up so that you can get the maximum benefit out of every single session moving forward, where we can actually have real conversations about feelings and what's going on with you internally. Does that make sense? Or is that helpful?
Yep, very, very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Any other questions for me?
Nope, I'll let you pop to the next person, I guess, for the moment.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. Anyone else have any questions they'd like to ask? Just hit the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. I can call on you. Let's see here. So over in the chat, Sonia is saying, I have problems and I have questions about all these things you mentioned and put on the list. You mentioned people have turned me into something I am not, with such support and help I cannot bear fruit. I want to have improvement in my life, and I did let it go on so many things, but other people's bad wishful thinking is impacting me. I tried absolutely everything. I want to be me, who I really am, and live freely in my own body. I hear you. That sounds very, very frustrating. If you have a specific question that I can answer for you, Sonia, make sure you raise your hand and I'm happy to answer anything that you might be curious about. Let's see, over in the chat, Dan mentioned, I've noticed that you don't have ongoing coaching as part of your business model. So does that mean that MindFix eliminates the need for ongoing coaching? Really great question. I often joke with people that we have what has to be the world's worst business model of all time. So there are some days when I sit and go, God, it would be so easy if we were therapists, where it's just like, you're going to be coming back for the next 5 years. We finished working with a clinical psychotherapist up in Canada, and he did a 3-month program with us. And near the end, it was like week 8 or 9 of his program. And I remember checking in on him. I was like, how are you feeling? And he had been getting better and better and better and happier each week. And we hit week 8 or 9. I was like, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm miserable. And I was like, whoa, what happened? He goes, how am I going to go back to my therapy practice and tell people they need to come to me for years when I now know what's possible? And I see that things only have to take, months or less than a year to do this. And what am I going to do? He was in this like life dilemma of seeing what was possible and how it was different than everything he had been classically trained to do through therapy, which was funny to hear. And we kind of had a chuckle about it. So to answer your question, Dan, we really don't have ongoing coaching as part of our business model. Some people do come to a handful, like 1 or 2 of the live events each year as touch-ups. And I would say maybe 3 to 4% of our clients come back for maybe a refresher. Maybe they've leveled up. They went from being working in a corporation to starting their own business. And then a year later, they're like, hey, I never used to delegate before, and I'm having some challenges here because I'm in this totally new scenario. Could we play with this for a little bit? So we'll do refreshers or like a mini package or a tune-up. Every once in a while, we've had people come back and say, this was one of the greatest experiences, and I want to just have you guys as insurance. So maybe I can do like a session a month for the next year, just so I can stay in touch and know that you guys are in my back pocket. But it's really rare. Like I said, maybe 3 to 4% of our clientele. The vast majority, which is like whatever, 95, 96% of our clients don't come back, because what they show up with is clear and is gone, or is at least no longer in their way by the time that they graduate. We've talked about different variations, and maybe once we've done the subtraction, bringing in types of coaching and additive coaching, like maybe now that you've gotten rid of your fears and your self-loathing and your worthiness issues, we can talk about how to have powerful communications, how to improve the significant relationships in your life, how to be a better leader. And we're exploring other like additive programs that are more like traditional coaching where you learn things. But our work historically really has been on focusing on pulling out, doing the mind surgery and pulling out the splinters so that there's this incredible relief. And it's like an 80-20. Like if we can fix 20% of the problems causing 80% of the issues in your life and send you back out, you're going to feel like a version 2.0 of yourself. And you're just going to be on fire, and the friction is gone and the resistance is gone. And you're going to feel so amazing that you're going to be able to finally use all of the tools and techniques and coaching and books that you've read. And most of the high achievers and high performers and leaders who have come to us have a wealth of knowledge that they then start to be able to apply and use in their life when they're not feeling like they're being held back. So while there are, in summary, while there are a handful of people who have found ways to kind of come back every once in a while or who work with us, the vast majority of our clients get to experience what we promise, which is when you are complete, most likely, if you're like the vast majority of our clients, you will feel like you're no longer being held back, the things are no longer in your way, and you're able to move forward with confidence and ease and momentum and flow. So that is the answer to your question. Dan, if there's a follow-up or anything else you want me to add to that, just hit the raise hand and let me know. Robin wrote over in the chat a question. She said, what is the next step if you are interested in moving forward? So as always, it's very simple. You go to our website, which is mindfixgroup.com. And I'll put it right here in the chat, mindfixgroup.com. And on pretty much every page in our site, there's a big round green apply button. I think it's at the top right. You click that button and you will have a link to book into a private call with me. And then it'll take you to an application, just a list of questions that help me determine, are we actually going to be able to help you? Because one of the reasons that we're able to have such an extraordinary success rate is we're actually just really picky about who we work with. We've learned over the years how to whittle out the people where we're like, we're not going to be able to help them. And so we take the people primarily when we're like, they're going to see tremendous success. So it's not cheating. It's just really knowing who we can help and who we can't. And so this process gets you thinking about questions and what you want different in your life. We get to have a really fun conversation and dive deep. And then we get to decide together, is this something where you're going to see great success, or should we send you to a different resource? Or do you need other options and opportunities at this point? Just talked to someone yesterday who came to us and she's like, I really want to do this work. But as we explored and talked during our conversation, we found out she wasn't ready for our program. She had really severe complex PTSD and severe nervous system dysregulation issues, where she would go into fight, flight, freeze. She would go into dorsal vagal freeze response and wouldn't be able to talk, and had all sorts of traumas. And we realized this type of work, when you're going into freeze mode and you can't communicate, it's not for you. So we came up and mapped out a plan to send her to get some help for the trauma and more somatic work, so that she can bring her nervous system into regulation and be at a place where she can show up and have conversations, and then we can work with her and move her forward. So the application process really is hey, let's see if we're a great fit, and we'll let you know if you are, and we'll let you know if not. And it's in our alignment. There's an alignment of incentives, because we want to make sure we're only working with people who are great fits. You only want to work with us if we have confidence we can make a big difference. And so we do that through conversation and questions, which is a lot of the work that we do in our program. So go through the application process and let's have a conversation, and we'll talk about which program would be a good fit for you, or if we want to come up with something custom based on your needs and your timeline and budget, things like that. So anyone else have any additional questions? Okay. 2 questions that I'd be happy to ask you if they are interesting to you. I have a hunch that I'm going to be interested in your questions. And this is from Kelly. Number 1, have you had clients who know they are excessively reliant on other people's opinions of them And okay, there's irony in how my preamble comment illustrates that already. Okay, so the answer, period, hands down, is yes. That is the pattern is typically in our world called need for approval. We're literally doing a private with a client right now, and one of his main patterns is he's hesitant to move forward in a relationship with a woman he's in love with because he's so concerned about what other people will think about him if he dates this lady. He's literally in a battle with himself where part of him wants to move forward with the love of his life, and part of him is concerned about what other people are going to think about him if he commits to this woman. And then we have business leaders who, these powerful CEOs and executives who behind the scenes are constantly wondering, like, what did people think of me when I went and did that TV interview? And what are people going to think of me when I admitted that and I was vulnerable on the podcast? Or I can't get up in front of my team and tell them the truth of what's going on with me, because if that changes how they think about me, then I'm screwed. So it is really, really common to have a pattern where you are really concerned about what other people think of you. You're not alone, super common, and it's something that is regularly and easily changed and fixed within our program. We're able to figure out your unique reason of why that shows up for you, because we can have 10 people who all have that pattern and they have different reasons for why they have it. Another reason why it's hard for us to do group programs is because everybody has different root causes of why they're having what looks like a similar symptom on the outside. So common, we figure out why you're experiencing it, what happened in the past that made your mind and your nervous system so concerned about what other people are going to think about you. And then we'll go in and we'll clear it. So yes, we have had not just some clients, but many clients who have had that pattern. And I would say it's one of the more easily resolved. Like, it's not necessarily a sticky one, but it is absolutely possible to get over reliance on what other people think about you. So then your second question, Kelly, let's go back. How much of the time do your clients see patterns in their life that seem suspicious, but not completely logical? I would say, honestly, most of the problems that people experience and that they show up to, and please raise your hand if I'm not answering your question, but I think I get what you're asking. Most of the challenges and the problems that people come to us with when they're looked at from the outside, they're not logical. They don't make sense. We had a national champion mountain biker who was torn with the deep sense that he wasn't good enough. Here he was podiuming at the national level, better than all the other people in the country, all the other men in his age group in the country. And he was going around going, I'm not good enough. Now, from the outside, you're going, that is not logical. That doesn't make sense, right? Or we've had, university professors or entrepreneurs who have invented the most incredible technology. And their problems or their patterns are, I'm an imposter. I'm not actually smart. If anybody finds out that it was just luck, or I just had the idea pop into my brain and I didn't have to work hard for it, people will find out I'm a fake, or I'm a fraud, or I'm a phony. And you're looking on the outside and you're like, that doesn't make sense, that they're obsessed with feeling like they're a fake when they've had all this made all these incredible contributions to society. Or, we've had people who wanted to shift into the coaching world, and they have more accreditations and diplomas and certifications than I have fingers and toes. And they're like, I'm not educated enough. I'm not ready yet to help people. Again, on the outside, you're like, you've been studying this for 15 years. Are you sure you're not ready? So many of the things that we deal with, or people who go, I'm not lovable, even though they have the most loving marriage, right? I would say the vast majority of problems that people are experiencing, one of the reasons why they're so frustrated is because from the outside, they don't seem logical. They don't seem to make sense. It's like, I have all this evidence and data to the contrary, that I'm a likable person, that I'm lovable, that I'm smart, but I don't feel that way. It doesn't make sense. There's a disconnect. So to answer your question, most of our issues don't seem logical. And that can be really frustrating. So I hope that answered your question. Okay, next question. Do you find that once people see that they are narrating their lives in a way that is causing them suffering, that they are able to dissipate whatever is getting in the way? Or might that be too logical? It sounds like you go for the felt experience as well as the awareness around the patterns as well. How important is it to get to the past event? So that was a couple different questions, but the short answer to your main question is, do you find that people see once they're narrating their lives in a way that's causing them suffering, they're able to change what's getting in their way? I would say maybe 10 to 15% of clients, once they realize they've been telling themselves a certain story and they're given a different interpretation, suddenly have the like, oh, and there's freedom for them. I would say some of our clients, minority, but whenever it happens, it's like, oh, that was too easy. A lot of people though have been going to therapy and coaching and have really amazing friends and have been trying to, and have been seeing the different interpretations for years and have been trying to change the narrative. No, I really am lucky. I really am fortunate. I really am a smart person. And they've been doing that work and trying to change the narrative, but it hasn't worked. And so sometimes awareness and more information and shifting the narrative is not enough to shift what feels like it's embedded at a really deep level. So to answer your question, minority of people, yes. Majority of our clients, no, they need something deeper. And your second follow-up question was, it sounds like you go for the felt experience as well as the awareness around the patterns. How important is it to get to the past events? It's really rare that you have, I would say the majority of MindFix sessions, we are going to explore past events. We're not going to rehash them ad nauseum. We're not going to sit and ask you to tell the same story that you've told the therapist in the past. We don't need all the details, but we do explore the roots and the connections. That one of the reasons you're having this bizarre experience over and over here that's not going away, something in your past has told your mind that you need to be prepared or keep yourself safe or something. And that's why you're having this reaction. So we do absolutely go back to past events. We do a handful, probably 8 different types of sessions here at MindFix. And maybe 2 of them, we don't need to go into past events, and it's more about felt experiences and thoughts. But the majority of them, there will be some exploration or some connection or discussion about different things that have happened in the past. So even if you had the most beautiful childhood, even if you had no big T traumas and you didn't go to war and you weren't beaten and you weren't assaulted, there are going to be things from the past that are causing you distress in your current life. So yes, we do look at a lot of times past events. Let's see. Next question. This is also fascinating. Thank you, Erin. You're welcome. That wasn't a question, but you are so very welcome. Oh, and then the question and the comment, it sounds like you go for the felt experience as well. We do. We do. We found that when we stayed purely intellectual and everything was just up here, people stay, there's the distinction that we make is there's thoughts and then there's thinking. If I have a conversation with you and we go out to coffee and I ask you questions and you're answering me instantly before I'm finishing my sentence and you're talking very quickly, you're just sharing thoughts. You're telling me things that you've told other people. You're telling me things that you've journaled about. You're telling me things that have come to your mind thousands of times before. You know, yep, this is how I was treated. Yep, I'm a victim. Yep, she's awful to me. Yes, and those are all thoughts. The MindFix sessions and what we do that allows people to tap into feeling is we try to pause and stop the thoughts and ask questions and then create a conversation that gets people away from thoughts and into thinking. We get people thinking thoughts and about possibilities that are not pre-recorded, that are not pre-taped. And sometimes literally, like one of our main techniques is someone will be like, I am always considered the bad guy. And I might be sitting here going, always? And suddenly that might hit someone and pause, and then their brain goes and checks, and they might come back and go, you know what? No, it's not always. I guess it's only in situations where I feel like there are older men and they look at, and suddenly it opens up new things. And so we have all of these techniques and ways to have these conversations that invite thinking, new ways of thinking, new ways of connecting to yourself and get you away from the pre-recorded, pre-taped thoughts. Once you start tapping into some of these new ways of thinking, it makes it easier to connect to yourself and to connect to the emotions and the feelings that are there. And then for those people, like we talked about earlier, who have a hard time feeling emotions and feeling their feelings, if that is a serious problem, we'll pause everything else and we're going to help you connect to your feelings first and foremost before we move forward, and allow you to connect with yourself so that you can get the most out of your program. So are there any other, I know we're at about an hour. I'm happy to stay a little bit longer if anybody has any other questions. If you want to hit the raise hand button at the bottom. If you have a question, you're like, I don't know if this is a good question, raise your hand. I would love to answer it. There are really no bad questions. And I guarantee you, if you have something that you're just curious about, someone else here or someone else who's watching the recorded version of this, it has the exact same question for you. I can't tell you how many times people go, I don't know if this is a good question, or this may sound weird. And I'm like, I've heard it 20 times before. Other people are thinking the same thing as you. So let's see what question just popped up here. All right, so Todd just wrote in and said, I think one of the audio tracks that plays on repeat in my mind is that success is not safe. That's a brilliant, brilliant awareness, Todd. While I have had success, this track seems to have kept me from truly enjoying it, and also has kept me from truly engaging with a larger vision. Makes total sense. If that track is playing in the background 24/7, going, success is not safe, success is not safe, success is not safe, and the primary objective of your brain is literally to keep you alive and safe, and success is not safe, you're trying to move forward towards success, and a whole massive parts of you are going to be pulling you away, going, no, 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 absolutely not. You don't want to go in that direction. We're going to pull you in the opposite direction. So what you're experiencing makes complete and total sense. I always seem to be looking for ways to keep things small and safe, even when they are successful. Since you focus on business owners with a big vision of success, would my personal issues be a possible fit for your program? Oh, what a beautiful question. I love it. People come in with business problems. They're all personal problems. They're all up here. They're all in here. And then they lead to business problems. The business problems are the symptoms that people show up with. We work with people's heads and their hearts when they come here. And so I would say that your personal issue of being scared of success could be viewed by some people as a business issue. Like it's absolutely a business issue as well as a personal issue. It's a business issue because you're not able to see the business success or financial success that you're capable of, because there's a part of you that says it's not safe. So this is exactly 100% the type of thing that people come to us for, is they're like, I'm being held back. I'm holding myself back. I want to go there. I want to have success. I want to have a big vision, but there's resistance and friction, and there's something holding me back from being able to get there. Many of the people that we work with don't have a clear vision. They're in between. They want to start a new business. They're like, I know I have special gifts to offer, but I don't know what they are. Or I've hit a plateau in my business and I don't know what the next vision is. I don't know how to go big. I don't know how to dream bigger. I've created my business like this, but this is keeping me safe. I don't know what this looks like. And so that's where we'll do a lot of our mind clarity work and crack into pushing away a lot of that kind of the fuzz and the fog and connecting to what's real and authentic down here, finding out what's preventing you, what's making you feel not safe, and then clearing that. So that at the end of the day, if you were to work with us, for example, one of the things we would want to explore is how can success feel safe to you, so that you can then begin to dream. You can then begin to explore what a big vision of success looks like to you, because you can't get there if you're being held back, if it feels unsafe. So we would work to identify and then eliminate whatever roadblocks are there in between you and being able to create the big vision of success. And clear that so that that's what your version of success would look like, is being able to dream and being able to vision without the fear and without the resistance. So we've had many clients who felt stuck, all at different levels of success. Some literally starting out as first-time entrepreneurs or business owners, some people who were employees in large corporations but were responsible for envisioning the success of their division. Some people who have owned businesses for many years, and then some people who are starting a new business. So people at every different point in their journey, but had a hard time envisioning or seeing, we're able to kind of, again, clear away the fog, give them the clarity, identify and eliminate what's blocking them from being able to succeed and envision, and then helping them get there. So yes, that issue would be a beautiful fit for the program. Absolutely. Okay, Dan is asking another question here. Do you work with people who aren't clear on what they want? Oh, I guess that goes, that ties into my last answer. Yes. What's interesting is if you had asked me this question maybe 4 years ago, I would have said no. Hands down, no. You come to us and you need to know what you want to shift. You need to know what you want to change in your life, and then we'll help you identify what's keeping you from being able to experience that, and then we'll clear it. If you don't know what you want, how can we help you? And that was how we were with in the first maybe 4 years of MindFix. But since the introduction of our mind clarity process in the last year, that changed everything. Our mind clarity process is phenomenal. These are 2-hour sessions. And the way I describe it, it's the equivalent of being able to have someone pop open the hood of a car with a flashlight and hold your hand and look around with you and go, oh, there's a wire over here that's unplugged. This battery seems to not be charging very well. This screw is loose. Did you know that? Let's tighten that up. And it's like really looking underneath the surface and having an honest, clear look at what's going on. And a lot of times what we'll find is hidden fears, competing commitments. Like I want to stay safe, but I want to succeed. And I feel like staying safe is being unseen, but succeeding requires me to be seen. So competing and conflicting commitments or conclusions, old traumatic memories, old memories that aren't traumatic, that are holding people back because because they're holding people locked into place. Sometimes we'll have fragmented identities, part of us that feels like an introvert, part of us that feels like an extrovert, and they will have different conclusions, beliefs, goals, desires, and we're being pulled in different directions. And so when we do the mind clarity, we find all these different pieces, fragments, issues, root causes underneath the surface. And when we start bringing them to the surface and then clearing them away, people are left with like a clarity that they've never had, hence the name Mind Clarity. And they're able to connect to themselves and go, oh, that's what I want. And so people who have been confused, unclear, uncertain, scared about moving forward for years walk away with this sense of like, this is what I want, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. And they're able to connect to themselves. So the answer, do you work with people who aren't clear on what they want? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Okay, so Kelly has a question here. Thank you so much for the Q&A session, Erin. Do you know that you sparkle at certain points when you talk about what you offer? I didn't know that. I haven't been told that I sparkled, so that's a first for me. Thank you. It's a beautiful phenomenon. I get really excited when I talk about this. I get excited because I've seen years and years of people getting to experience what they previously thought was impossible. And that fills my heart because I was in their spaces from years ago. I was in the space of chronic pain and anxiety and depression, being suicidal and thinking that nothing could work. And having tried, spent 6 figures and tried everything and just wishing like, I wish someone could help me. I would give anything in my life for someone to show me something different. And now I get to, and my team gets to be those people for others. And we get to show people who are open and on the cutting edge that the old ways and tools and techniques and tactics and ways of thinking, that change has to be hard or change has to be difficult, that those don't have to be true, that that's not necessarily the case anymore, that so much more is possible. So it's exciting to be able to share this with you. And thank you for the kind comment, Kelly. I really appreciate that. That was very sweet. Let's see, does anybody else? Oh, Sonia, I see your hand raised. Let me allow you to talk. Hi, Sonia. If you want to hit unmute, and then everybody will be able to hear you.
Hi, I have a question about success. I had success before and it was never stable. And I just realized by talking to you now that, listening to you now, that my success was never financial.
So what I heard you say is your success was never financial.
Yeah, never. It was not stable. Like it was coming and going and coming and going.
Okay. So what question do you have that I could answer for you?
So is that something that can be resolved through you, or how can I move through this?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So I'm going to hit mute here. So oftentimes what we find is people will come to us and say, I've had success in other programs. Things work. I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. I went and did this, 12-month course or program. And hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. So we have a lot of people who say, I've had so much success. It's been so amazing. But then the success goes away. Like it's not there anymore. I revert back, or I feel the same, or I have a great month and then I'm not making the money anymore. And that's really common, unfortunately. And a lot of times that's because the programs or the tools that people use are those additive tools. They give you a boost, or they give you some strategies that you can keep doing in the short term, but it hasn't actually addressed the root cause of why you've been experiencing those issues in the first place. Maybe you go to a weekend seminar and you get pumped up and you get excited and you've got the adrenaline going and you've got accountability partners and everything's going really good and you feel amazing and you've got the adrenaline rush and the dopamine hits and you have like 2 good weeks. But because you haven't really cleared what's going on underneath the surface, your issues are going to keep coming back. The patterns of maybe not making the money or being scared to go out and promoting yourself or not doing the work you need to do, your patterns start coming back. And whatever you've been doing that have been causing the issues, they never went away to begin with. The splinters are still there. Maybe you had a fresh Band-Aid put on over them. Maybe you had new, again, Neosporin to calm things down. Things felt better for a bit. But if the root issues weren't pulled out and addressed and cleared and eliminated, it's very likely that the success that you thought you experienced was temporary, and you're going to get pulled back into the old patterns. And usually the patterns are ways of thinking, ways of feeling, or ways of acting, behavior. And those patterns are always the symptoms of what's going on underneath the surface and in your subconscious. So sometimes those patterns will feel like they've changed and, oh, my thoughts are different, or I'm feeling happier, I'm changing my actions for a little bit. But when you haven't changed what's underneath the surface and you haven't pulled out that splinter that's causing those pains, oftentimes you'll revert and the success will be temporary with those additive approaches. That's why at MindFix, everything we do is subtractive, and we look for the root causes and we look to subtract and clear those so that your symptoms don't come back and you don't revert to the same patterns. I'm going to unmute you, Sonia. Let's see here. And Sonia, does that answer your question regarding the lack of success stain?
Yeah, it does, and it was when you are talking about explaining this, it's like it's been. In my case, it was a lot of judgment, and when the judgment came in, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative, and I think that's where I got stuck.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like that would have been frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay. Did my explanation of why the pattern returned, did that make sense to you?
Definitely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that can actually cause another pattern and problems for people is they'll show up and they're like, I've done so much work. I've worked with so many people. I've spent so much money. I've tried all the things. And they show up and they already have a belief they already have a sense that this isn't going to work for them because they've tried so hard. They've worked so hard. They've done all the work. They've done so much in the past. So how is this going to be any different? And they expect it's not going to work. Part of them wants to, and they'll pay the money, but they've got one foot out the door because they're like, nothing's going to really work for me. So oftentimes at the beginning of our programs, we literally have to work with beliefs and senses of nothing works for me. We had a client a month ago-ish who was seeing this crazy trajectory in the program. Life was changing, relationships were changing, making more money, less stress, less anxiety. And he got to about 6 weeks in, 7 weeks in, and then suddenly was like, this isn't working. It's not possible. And we were shocked because we're tracking his progress. We're seeing all the shifts. We're seeing all the changes. And when we dug into it, we found that he had a deep belief that nothing works for me because of all of his experiences over the past 30 years, nothing had worked. So now this is starting to work, but he's in his brain, it's like, this can't work for me. Nothing works for me. This isn't going to work for me. So we had to actually delete and clear that belief so that he could allow everything to work and he would stop blocking it and self-sabotaging it. So it's really common when people have done a lot of work and they haven't seen progress, or the progress reverts, that they expect that when they come into the program. So we often have to examine what people have done in the past and examine their relationship to change and see if anything there needs to be cleared in order for them to experience the benefits of the program, so that they're not experiencing benefits, but they can't believe it. Part of their system's like, this isn't happening because success is not for me. We make sure that that's not there, so that whatever shows up in the success they experience gets to be fully experienced by them. So thank you for that question, Sonia. That was great. Let's see here. Any other questions that anybody wants to put into the chat in the sidebar, or if you want to raise your hand, if there's any other remaining questions or things that you're curious about, even if it's something small, anything about past experiences, what something might be like for you personally, anything at all, now's your chance. Let's take a look. So it looks like, I think that's everybody's questions. It looks like this is a wrap for today. So I want to thank everybody for joining me today for my very first ever Q&A. Thank you for the brilliant questions and the conversation. This was super fun. If you have any questions that pop up for you after today's discussion, I'm going to put my personal email here in the chat box. And feel free to send me an email anytime and I'll get back to you. And if need be, and you have a lot of questions and you want to ask about things that are showing up for you in your personal life, we can always set up a 15-minute call and explore what's possible for you. And I can either point you to other resources or tell you what would be possible within the confines of the MindFix program for you. I'm not seeing your email. So I just posted it. Right there, I'm seeing it says it went to all of the hosts and the attendees. For anybody who's not seen my email over in the sidebar in the chat, super easy. It's Erin, E-R-I-N, at mindfixgroup.com. Okay, so nobody's seen it. I have no idea what's going on. Let's take a look. I'm gonna change it to everyone and let's type this out again. So Erin at mindfixgroup.com. So I just posted it in the chat. Is everybody able to see it now? Oh, yeah, change it to Erin, everyone. Just did. Genius. Yep, okay, you guys can see it now. And what I'm also gonna do, just as a thank you for you all showing up, I'm gonna put a link in here that you guys can keep in your back pockets. It's kind of a secret link that I don't give out to many people. But this is a link to a special booking calendar for me. You can book in 15 minutes to speak with me directly. It's kind of like a private Ask Me Anything. Any questions that come up, anything you're curious about yourself, a loved one, a coworker, team member, or anything that got brought up by what we talked about today, feel free to keep this link. It's meetme.so/Erin15, and you can just book a time in my calendar if there's something that comes up and you want to explore it more. I'm happy to support you. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a lot of fun. I love that we had people from all over the world show up. This is a blast. Do reach out if you need anything else at all, or if you're curious. And until the next time we talk, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you again. Bye, everybody.